Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Lisa Bryn, and today I want to discuss with you a very cool new tool that I just got in the mail, which is the Wave Tool Arete. And this awesome tool is very similar to a tool that I saw in sports medicine many years ago called the Graston company and tool sets, and with them you had to attain a certain level of certification in order to be able to even qualify to order their tools, and their tools were several $1,000s. So fast forward to today, it's been about a decade since those tools came out, and now we have awesome tools like this that you can get for somewhere near $65 to $70 mailed to you, and they even come with cool little cases. So I specifically reached out to Wave Tools to have them send me this tool because I really like the shape, I like the design, I think it's novel, and I really like the price point. So I love the idea of having you guys learn how to do your own self-care and learn how to use your own tools. And so my guidance today, I'm pairing this video with my episode 19 of Unsprained, which is my climbing injury podcast. And the goal is to teach you the how and the why of these tools so you get to work and start working on yourself. So why would you use a tool like this? This is very similar to Graston and a long time treatment technique known as GuaSha. The goal of a tool like this is to break up scar tissue beneath the skin. So let's just kind of set the stage. You have the skin as the top layer, and then underneath that, we'll use this for it, we have fascia, which connects all over your body, one muscle group to the next, Underneath the fascia and above it is a little bit of fat, superficial and deep fats. So you have your fascia, and then you have a second layer of fascia below it. So we have two layers of fascia, and then our muscle groups deep to that. So there's quite a few layers if you think of it like a nice piece of cake. I love cake, especially chocolate cake. But layers of all those different tissue types when we have trauma or inflammation or damage in those areas or just long time friction. All those tissues can become adhered together. So they should normally glide nicely along each other and be very fluid and elastic on a 3D, just thinking large scale. And when we have inflammation, those tissues will very much adhere up and stick to each other in some, not all people, and we lose that gliding surface. So when you stretch your skin in a certain range of motion, say you're doing a twist and you're reaching for something, you may feel tightness or adhesions where the body is bound in a motion pattern that you used to be able to do, and all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. So that's where these awesome tools come in. I'm highlighting this tool because I see a lot of people misusing tools, so I wanted to add some guidance as for how you use the tools. So we're specifically, unless you have guidance from your PT to do elsewise, I don't want you digging deep beneath the surface on your flexor tendons. I don't want you going down into these deep muscles or deep strands of the muscle and grinding side to side on those. So there's a lot of different layers of muscle and tissue that we have in our body, and if you find one of those and you really start grinding on it, they can cause inflammation and or damage, okay? So I'd really like you to stay on the surface of the skin. Not everyone needs a tool like this. Not everyone needs this therapy. So I just want to be very clear as for who this type of therapy is for. If we're working in a region, I'm just going to use my forearm for example, if you have had your forearm sitting on the edge of a desk for too long while you type and building up scar tissue in here, this can become very inflamed. So if you try to grab that tissue and it feels like it's anchored or adhered to the underlying tissues, this is a modality that would work for you. But if you have very thin skin and you go to grab that skin and move it and it doesn't feel like it's adhered below, then this is not really a modality for you. However, we're all different and we all build inflammation and scar tissue differently, and the only way to really know is to grab a tool and test. So I have you guys grab just a little bit of, I'm just using a basic massage oil. You can use butter, you can use cooking oils. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get in there. So we're gonna use the tool And when I have you push with the tool, we are just rubbing along the surface of the skin. We're not pushing in and digging deep in the skin. We're more coming right along the surface. So think of that lawnmower, just pushing it right across the surface of the ground. We're doing the same kind of a thing. So getting into your forearm, we are just gently pushing along, and we're letting that skin telegraph and tell us what the texture feels like. So I'm feeling right along the edge, and you can also feel it in your tissues as well. And we don't want to feel bumps as we're going along, and we don't want to feel that tool gliding and then all of a sudden boop, it stops because it hits an area where that skin has a little more resistance. These are all areas we want to do work in. So the tool is also a perfect test. So if you don't have a fancy tool like this, you can begin with a butter knife. I'm just gonna hold this up so hopefully you can see the edge of it. It's really rounded and it's not sharp, okay? So I don't want you, with your home care tools, feel them. I don't want any sharp edges. If you have a sharp edge, sand it off, okay? We don't want anything sharp. And then the reason why some of these tools have divots in them is to get around tendons and around bones. So I specifically work with rock climbers. So those of you that are watching could be rock climbers. Many of you are not. So as climbers, we get a lot of scar tissue on the back of our hands, and we actually adhere that skin and that deep fascia to ligaments and tendons underlying the skin. So the bumps on the end, we can actually get in around the bones and work through those regions. So we're just being very gentle, and we just back and forth, tiny little motions. And for those of you that are new, I would start you at just 5 seconds of testing it out in a region, and then stop. See, do you get inflammation? Does the area hurt worse? Are you getting bruising? Are you taking your skin off and now you have a big cut mark? That's not good, right? So let's test it out, see how your body responds. And then I love these tools because we can go 3D with our approach, and I really love to guide you guys with your approach. So think of the skin as that top jelly layer. We want to make sure that it can glide in all different directions, not just one direction, okay? So if you're someone that likes to use a foam roller or does a bunch of massage work and you're always going in one direction, that skin is probably unadhered in that direction and it works just great. But what about if we were to go the other direction, or if we were to do a rotational move, okay? So test it out with your tool. And as we go through, I'm just gonna use the top of my forearm now, we can flex the fingers so we're pre-stretching the muscle and the tendon underneath the skin. That just helps us to break apart the scar tissue a little bit easier. So I pre-stretch, and then you can start on the back of the hand, working up through the back of the wrist, into the back of the forearm. And if you hit little pebbly, bumpy bits, that's the bit that we want to start breaking apart, creating some gliding there. And just like I said, scar tissue is 3D, and we want these tissues to be able to glide 3D. So not only do you want to go up and down, but we want to go left and right, and or you can take your tool and do rainbows left and right like this, as well as just scraping straight up, scraping straight down. Scraping left and right specifically is a little bit harder because you may encounter some tight, twangy tendons and muscles that are deeper, and I would love to have you working more superficial against the skin. So just that top 10% of your tissue is what we're going for to get that elastic glide to happen. So I noticed that different clients have different skin properties. Those of you that are triathletes that are always moving and stretching, and specifically swimmers, you guys have a very elastic skin, so you may not need this kind of work. But my weightlifters, my runners, especially my climbers, who everything is just inflamed and adhered, any tissue that's had an impact or a trauma to it can become very adhered below the skin. So if you can pick up your skin like I'm showing here and you can move it around 3D, you do not need this type of a tool. However, you might be able to pick up your skin and you may be able to move it up and down. However, you can't move it left and right. So another alternative is to get in there in the directions it does not move and just start helping that tissue to glide left and right. And if that doesn't work, and if it feels like you're over a delicate tissue area, then by all means, grab it with your fingers, pick that tissue up, and then you can just do little circles left and little circles right to break up the scar tissue in that region. So these tools are fabulous for many, many different injuries. I would stay off of anything that is a burn mark, a hot new cut, anything that is actually trying to heal, where we see any sort of skin that is not yet formed, not yet healed. So we really want to wait for that skin to heal. So if you have scabs or trauma directly on the skin, stay off of it till that is healed. And most of our bodies put 80% more scar tissue than we need in an area. So we're just going up and we're breaking up all the extra scar tissue and allowing that to become a nice glide surface so that that tissue can restore its normal biomechanics instead of being adhered. So why do we care about this? Because when the skin is adhered to the fascia and the fascia is not gliding nicely, maybe perhaps it's anchored and adhered to the muscle belly below it, that changes the way those structures work, and it also provides increased load into other regions, either distal to that area, so further down into the finger. If you have adhesions in the palm and this is all scar tissue together, maybe you smacked it on the wall, maybe just a lot of abrasions on there, that being adhered is going to load all the way down into your fingers, the backs of the fingers, into the joints. So fascia and this tightness, this loading can create issues all over the body. And so they say, and I'm sure I'm repeating myself, you've probably heard this, but it's good to kind of be reminded, fascia can transfer 40% of the strength of muscle to an area that's not even close to it. So let's say your pec is tight and adhered and rigid through here, and that tightness can create load all the way down into the fingertip and change the biomechanics down there. So it's a really cool strategy to learn to be working on yourself and to unload not only the area that we're working on, but also distal to it. So what areas should you start with in your own journey? If you are an upper arm athlete, I would highly recommend starting through the pec, chiseling down through the bicep, going into the structures and the areas that we use in our daily activities. Work, we do a lot of load through the base and the bottom of the forearm. If you write or if you type, there's going to be a lot of scar tissue in through here, and just be gentle. And the timing on this, how long do you do this? 5 seconds to begin with. That's a test to see if we get bruising, get inflammation, if we get a bad result. If that goes well, then you can do up to 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds, not minutes, not hours, okay? This is not like massage. We are going in, we're making a mechanical change that hopefully is a permanent change. We're ripping up scar tissue so it can move again, and the body needs time to heal from that. So it's very effective short-term application. So 30 seconds is not a lot of time, but it does a huge, huge difference. And then we take a few days off to let it heal. So for each area you treat, I would love to have you be taking maybe 4 days off afterwards. So this is something, if you're only treating your pec region, I would do once a week. If you have several areas, if you're excited about this tool, you want to use it in several different areas, whatever tool you have, right? You don't have to have this tool. Graston, GuaSha, this is a wave tool. This is the Arete tool. You can use a butter knife, right? The goal is to ensure that you're using something that's safe. And you can even use a scraper for your skis and just make sure the edges are all smoothed off and sanded down so that it is a small working surface that doesn't dig into you. So we're doing this a few times a week. If you have numerous body parts that you want to be working on, treat it like as if you were in the gym all the time lifting weights. One day is legs, one day is back, one day is arms, one day is core. You can rotate through and then 4 or 5 days later come back to that original spot to be working on it. How do you know when you're done? You don't need to do it anymore. Perfect question. That tissue, now that you're hitting it with your gliding surface, that tissue now moves. So if I zoom in, you can see, you can kind of see some scar tissue under there, the little bumpies. As I start to get in there and work on it, as the weeks go on and the applications layer upon each other, we'll start to notice that tool now glides nice and smoothly. And instead of, as I glide it, it gets stuck, and then it glides, and then it gets stuck, and it glides, and it gets stuck. After a few applications, it's going to start gliding very nicely up and down your forearm and not sticking or grabbing on these little adhesions underneath the skin. And then lastly, I want to hit the discussion of scar tissue that's granular. Some of you are going to hit little pebbles that you feel underneath the skin, and you're really going to want to break those up and have those gone for good. But the truth of the story is some scar tissue we've earned and it's not going to go away, okay? It's a long-term, the body thinks it's an improvement upon itself, so the body's put it in there to make it stronger. So in those applications, we're breaking up the adhesions of those little granular bits to the rest of your skin. We want it all to glide very nice and smooth, but we aren't necessarily able to break up all those little bumpy bits, okay? So don't go for gold and think you're gonna break all those up and they're gonna stay gone. So our goal is to get nice, smooth gliding, to have every bit of the skin be able to glide 3D on all these different directions, okay? And then the rest of it, we just leave it, because the more we dig and grind and aggravate things, the body may lay, in some of your cases, may lay down more scar tissue. So we want it to be an improvement and getting better and not getting worse. So that is my video today on these tools. I would love if you put any questions down below so I absolutely can get answers to you. I appreciate you being here, and I would love if you like my video and share it with a friend. And also, if this is of interest, I hope you check out my podcast, Unsprained. I'll put a link below, but Unsprained, I touch on all the different self-care tools, and I love giving you action plans and step-by-step tutorials on how do you make these improvements, how do you step forward with your body every day, making improvements and building on those improvements over days and weeks and months to be in a different place than you are now. So my goal is to see you out there many decades from now doing what you love to do, injury-free. And if you're not injury-free and you hit something you need help with, that's what I'm here for. I'm here as your safety net. But in the meantime, I'm trying to give you so much education so that you can work on yourself. And if you get hung up, you reach out to me. So again, I'm Lisa Bryn. Thank you for joining me. I hope you follow my podcast, and have a wonderful day, and don't forget to like my video. Okay, bye.